my conclusion, which to be candid is sort of a hypothesis I've had for a very long time and founded a company based on it, but I feel was reinforced. And in various conversations I've had with Michael yesterday and a few folks at dinner, like, we don't have technology problems. We don't have ad problems. We don't have media problems. We have business problems. Like, I think that's the reality. And you guys all are from organizations and companies that your DNA and your muscle memory is in technical innovation and technological innovation. And kudos and thank you all, because you have pushed our industry and our agenda forward. But if I did a little throwback to the Beet Retreat when it first started in Puerto Rico, and forgive the history, but I think this is important. This started, I think, Andy, we've been doing this for 10 years. When we first started in Puerto Rico, it was in Vieques, and we were focused on online video. Remember? I mean, that was like, it was like the Israeli mafia. Like, that was the crew that came, right? It was all online video. Because we all thought convergence was gonna happen faster. You know, we thought one audience, one price for video. Like, we were all kind of running up to catch up to it. And like, fast forward, it's not, right? We're not there yet. And so we all anticipated, and the founder's dilemma of innovators, which I've painfully lost a lot of sleep over, is if you build it and the market's not ready, can you wait long enough? But if you don't build it, you're gonna be late. And so interestingly enough, we find ourselves at this point right now where the business problems have the signal to noise ratio. The business problems, I think, are louder than the technological problems. And I want to understand what that means for you and your cultures and your companies and what you build and how you prioritize and where you invest and you spend that amazing amount of money that you just raised. Like, what do you do with that stuff? So, Tal?
Yes, where do I start? First of all, to your point about taking a long time, I think there is this statement that is totally true, is that you can dream about things faster than they actually happen, but when they happen faster than you anticipated. And the same thing happened. People anticipate. We started Innovid in 2007-ish, right after Google acquired YouTube. Hulu was kind of an inception, and there was, if you read TechCrunch back then, like, everyone's talking about future of television moving to the internet, cord cutting, television is dead, whatever, all of this stuff. Clearly, it took many, many years until something started to happen. But look at the last year, the changes that happened in the last 12 to 18 months in the landscape of television are way faster than us in the technology side of advertising are now catching up on measurement or better ad product. People are buying Roku's or Amazon Fire faster than marketers are moving their dollars. So this is the state that we're in right now, and it's an exciting thing. We've been waiting for that big bang for quite some time. You're right that it's not a technological challenge, if you will, even though it's still an amazingly fragmented market, as attested by a lot of the other discussion. It's not going to be less fragmented in the future.
So Phil, I would like you to comment on that, because I was actually surprised by what Tal said, and I started to actively listen to it.
Yeah, looking at your face, I was wondering what's going to happen.
He jazz hands, just use them when I throw you for a loop. He suggested that the pace of change has accelerated. That's what I heard you say in the last 12 to 18 months in television. Please react to that. Tell me your thoughts on that.
How about if I illustrate it through an example, right? So, and one that I'm guessing some people in this room will really be able to relate to. So a week ago on Thursday, I'm on the West Coast. Actually, that's not true. I was down in Texas, and we were doing a QBR with one of our larger brand clients, right? And so this is a brand direct team that had a couple of their agencies in the room as well. Now, why a couple of agencies? Because it's a very large brand, and they have a tier 1, and then they have a tier 2 structure, and so the way they manage that is that they have like one primary brand that does most of the national branding, and then they have like a tier 2 agency ecosystem. So it's probably like a half dozen agencies all involved. So one of the things that we were showing them was the results of, we're the DSP of record for them. So we do all of their digital and all their programmatic, right? And now they're starting to use us for all of their linear TV and CTV planning and optimization as well. And so one of the first steps in that process is you got to start by measuring, right? And so in applying a 4-screen measurement, so taking a look at, by joining like person and panel data and being able to look at what is your digital exposures, what are your TV exposures, what is the overlap, What it showed in a histogram, so putting it into buckets of like light, medium, heavy, very heavy exposures, was that let's see if I get this right, 73% of their impressions, 73% of their impressions within a single campaign were going to 12% of the households. 12% of the households. Like, it's shocking to look at. And these are smart people. And they're working with good agencies. But what you're seeing is not a failure of technology. I don't know, failure is kind of a strong word, but it's a reality, that's a better word. It's a reality of organizational alignment, right?
So I'm gonna question that a little bit, because I had a very illuminating moment.
I would like to question that as well.
Is Stuart here, Jonathan? Jonathan we had a teaching moment last night in line for the bus. See, you just don't know the wisdom you provided me. And we were having a conversation. Christy was there, and we were talking about something as much of a tentpole event as the Olympics, and watching an authenticated app and seeing the ad load, right? And whether that's a problem of the ad server being able to, manage that, et cetera, or it was just an issue of maybe the last Olympics, the market wasn't mature enough for OTT and et cetera. But Jonathan was like, well, look, here's the issue. I can buy from the app provider. I can buy from a platform provider like Roku. I can provide, and ultimately I can't actually control my frequency at all, and they can't guarantee a frequency cap for me. So so like the best laid plans of an agency, that feels like a business problem, because nobody wants to play nice together.
Well, but part of what's happening there, so this depends on what's the lens that you bring to the question, okay? So what's happening in this scenario is that you have a national agency which has a siloed wall between TV investment and digital trading. You then have an ecosystem of tier 2 agencies which are not using the same measurement as what is the tier 1 agency. So even before you get to the problem that you're describing, which is how do you manage across the fragmented OTT landscape and the different levels of control you have within that kind of like semi-walled garden environment, many organizations, many brands have higher order efficiency issues that we're already skipping over in these discussions.
Michael, just sort of as the middle of the sandwich here, what's your perception? Because you're stuck between sort of the old and the new, right? You're trying to enable, but then you've got this headwind of how do you do that with privacy and these new technical and business solutions. Just what you're between the two sort of signals here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think there has been a big evolution and change in the tools that are available today, where you can actually, run plans and measure against advanced audiences, and there has been a organizational shift within the agencies, within the brands, to be able to plan and execute against that. But there is still a big shift that needs to happen on the technology side. So, I don't think it's anywhere near done in terms of the technology innovation that has to happen, but there is a chicken and the egg where, the tools have to exist before the buyers can actually execute against a holistic plan against linear and OTT. And the big piece to that, which was on the previous plan, is just the measurability. And the challenges within linear television. There's new data sets with ACR, a set-top box being combined to create more measurability within audiences and attribution within TV. But then you have OTT, which is still a real challenge to measure, and clients need to look at that holistically. So there is more technology innovation that needs to happen.
Yep.
To continue that organizational shift as well.
Disagree. So my point, like if you look at panels like that, it's kind of a known and an easy trick to say that the current system is broken, aka there's a problem with Nielsen or there's a problem with the agency structure. This is kind of a common theme that in every panel is people are saying. I must say this is not, I don't think that this is accurate to blame that and say that this is the reason for a problem. You mentioned earlier, or you coined Mr. Stoyer with the fragmentation and the different problems in the industry. This is the current state of connected television. There's many ways to buy content. There's many syndications, and thanks to a lot of automation, there's many ways to access audience. And this is a real problem. This problem is not going to go away. And honestly, if you look at the history, this is the first time in the history of digital media, at least, that it was that fragmented. Google owned the search world. Facebook owned the social world. No one owns the connected television world. It's a very, very fragmented space. And I think this is the time where, to your point earlier, is that it's not a technology, it's a business problem. But it is, you still need to invest in technology. For example, make a decision on the ad server, on the agency. You can actually say, yes, I'm buying media from different providers. Each and every one of them cannot really promise me the right frequency because they don't see the others. But I, as a buyer, could have a technology to say, I have a bird's eye view of everything, and now I can decide I'm not going to serve this, or I'm going to change the message, or I'm going to change the sub-brand that I'm serving.
Okay, so let me give you a scenario. So, moment in time, in the near future, let's say that magically we as an industry all decide to play nice together for the sake of the greater good. We all have a kumbaya, a spiritual awakening, right? So there's some arbiter of objectivity that is a master data czar, that there's some sort of commercial model, financial model where everybody gets paid fairly and equitably for the value of their data. There's access and transparency and the ability for anybody that spends $1 in media to get that data back and do with it what they will, as long as they play by the rules that are administered by some sort of fairly trusted governing body. Okay, so it's a stretch, and I know it's never going to happen, but
I'm getting ready with jazz hands
yeah.
here.
So I know we're chasing. Let's just say. So my point is, I'm eliminating all the issues of access, transparency, sort of use and applicability. And let's say we're in an open source world, right? With a commercial model that works. Tell me what the technological friction is. What hasn't been built and what doesn't exist that couldn't solve all the problems we've just talked about?
I fundamentally think that world you're describing, we see the death of the cookie, mobile ID is probably going to go away too. OTT is incredibly hard to measure because there isn't IDs on all of the devices, and IP address is now PII. So I think the world you're describing is probably built around some sort of signed-in user aggregation where, that is really the best identity across different screens. And you can see Google moving in that direction with Ads Data Hub, Amazon, going with their clean rooms. I think some sort of signed-in user ecosystem.
Okay, but SSO exists. Authentication, single sign, all that's. I guess that's what I'm saying, guys.
But not for identity, though.
I'm asking a really specific, hard question because
can I give a tech
if Store creates his UID versus Google, if everybody can create their own UID, if they're willing to put skin in the game and spend money, which transparency and access and ease of sort of utilization of data that you should get back if you spend money. If that was available, what technology doesn't exist that couldn't solve all the problems of measurement, of deduping, of unduplicated reach and frequency capping? What tech doesn't exist?
I think that the precursor to what you just said is that doesn't exist. This unique ID doesn't really exist everywhere.
But that's not a technical problem. That's a business problem.
It is a technical problem. It's kind of it's not a rocket science, but it's still not available right now, and it's not. And it is. I think it's. We're skipping the problem, saying that this is not a technical problem per se. I don't know. Taking in 2008, give or take, the IAB came out with VAST as a standard format. I would say that the next generation of VAST, which made it a ubiquitous way for an ad server to serve into a video player, right? So it doesn't matter what tech you're using. This transfer protocol was standard. The next generation of that is a very simple thing, is adding an identity. Imagine that every time that that a server talks to a video player would be paired with who is watching right now. Everything that I know about who's on the other side. Is it logged in? I have a device ID, I have an IP, whatever I have, just pair that on that same transaction. That will allow so many different services, make decisions in real time, frequency capping, measurement, creative decisioning, so many different things could be a byproduct of that. Not saying that the technology is there to enable that, yes, it's technically feasible, but it's still not here, not only because of business, right?
So Phil, let me ask you a question. Do you the problem set that you described, which was thank you for doing that. That was a wonderful, wonderful example. Do you feel like if the friction that exists in regards to getting data and all the things that would provide your marketer and their agencies with the ability to sort of break down those silos, do you feel like if that didn't exist, you are equipped and able to sort of build the technology and the solutions to activate that?
So for that particular brand, they can probably drive, based on what we've seen with other brands, using tools and data available today, they can probably drive about a 15 to 20% improvement in efficient use of their overall TV budget, holistically, what is linear, connected, premium video, right? I think as an industry, we've turned technology into this fetish, right? We automatically focus on how do we build our way out of a solution? What's the next technical innovation that's necessary? And I agree, there is a long roadmap of innovation yet to come. There are a lot of barriers to overcome. But there is so much in terms of low-hanging fruit on both the buy and the sell side. I mean, on the sell side, you have so much untapped opportunity within what is, the OTT inventory, right, as opposed to what is just purely the linear inventory. But buyers don't necessarily go there because they haven't been using the measurement, and frankly, it hasn't existed up until very, very recently. But they haven't been using the measurement in order to understand that that's the right amplification strategy for a core TV, campaign that they're running, right? And they can even amplify that into social, by the way. And so there's a lot more that's available to solve problems or at least create efficiencies and better outcome-based advertising, both buy and sell side today. So I hear the question, but I always worry that we overfocus, and we talk to our clients about this a lot, about look at how you better use the tools that are available today before focusing on that you have to solve a problem that's not even in front of you at the moment.
Right. And that's very true, right? I mean, I think that's the paradoxical situation we are in and paradigm of our industry right now, is that we have this legacy tentpole business that the metaphor I use is Rome is falling, but it falls one brick at a time, and we sort of patch it back up, right, with some stucco pretty quickly. But so that's a question, and Michael, I would love if you would be, first pass at this. So you are in the C-suite of, and you choose, CTO, CFO, I don't really care, whatever hat you want to wear, but you're in the C-suite of a publicly traded sell-side media company that is both in the linear TV business. 80-90% of your top line revenue is driven by linear television, and you have what is a growing OTT sort of digital video business, but video is no more than 6% of top line ad revenue. Where do you double down, knowing it's an election year? It's 2020. Where do you invest? If you have a fixed pool of money to invest in innovation, systems, improvement, technology, sales ops, because they all typically come from the same budget, but to basically improve ad revenue, where do you spend your money today?
I would say, given the rate of change in the industry, you're not going to be best served just trying to improve the existing tools in the market, 15 to 20%. I think if you do that, you're going to be dead. So I would be investing in a completely new way of doing it, because that is where the market is headed. It's a totally different way of consumption, and it's accelerating.
So when you because I want to understand that point just a little bit more specificity. So when you say in doing it better, is that OTT digital video, or is that productizing television, traditional linear television delivered through a transcoded terrestrial feed on a set-top box, making that better? Which one?
I think it's packaging the OTT and the traditional TV in a much better way.
Yeah, I absolutely would second that. I mean, look, at the end of the day, when you're competing against the digital first, walled garden publishers, you have to give the audience that your customers want to buy, and that's a data-driven audience. It's not necessarily buy demos. That's a strategic audience target that's defined through the advertiser's first-party data, second, third-party data, right? Wherever that data comes from, it's an audience-first approach, and making it very seamless to be able to understand and to forecast and ultimately to package and sell on a cross-screen basis. And that just focus on making it easy.
But so that's the challenge, right? That's the dilemma right now, because the economics do not show that there is revenue upside to do that because of the current state of illiquidity and supply constraint on premium OTT video. For sellers, they are garnering, and the math shows this because I've seen the math, right? They are garnering higher CPMs because they sell premium video as a standalone in lieu of unifying one audience, one price, because ultimately their linear CPMs would drive down the CPM of that. I mean, that's just the reality, right? Like that's the truth of a lot of it. You're not, I mean, we see $40 to $50 CPMs on premium over-the-top video if it's for premium product, right? I mean, you're building a measurement product.
Yes.
Tell me, prove me wrong, because I love math. It doesn't lie. It's a beautiful thing.
First of all, I think that all of those, I assume you're right, but and this is an extremely supply-constrained market, but we're in a transition time, so it's kind of a hard thing to base the theory based on where we are right now. More and more television will be as strong of a market as it is right now and has ever been. People will watch whatever, the 5 hours per day of television. In the future, it will just, or video, will just increase. The move from managed closed network, QAM or satellite-based, into open IP-based television will happen, and everything will move to the internet. So those transitions, we're just in the middle stage, but it will happen.
Would you venture a time frame on that?
I think I would be wrong in whatever time I will pick, so it doesn't matter.
I mean, are you a grandpa by then, or are you the kids in college?
I don't know, probably next
Middle
week.
school? So. Where are we at?
I don't know. I think what does matter what I'm betting. I think it will.
It does matter. If you're a CFO, it matters a lot. If you're a shareholder in these companies, it matters a lot.
You know what? I would say that, and again, I think Disney is maybe the best example to that. Is the betting for the long term? Is that it will happen for sure? There's no doubt. I do not know if this is a 3 years horizon or a 5 years horizon. It's probably not a lot shorter than that, and not a lot longer than that. And it's not. You mentioned earlier, what do you do if I was a CFO? What would I do today to affect 2020? Probably not a lot is possible to affect 2020. A lot of those games are long-term games. And I would say I would invest in, you mentioned your analogy about Rome is breaking and we take the bricks one by one to try to rebuild it. So I would say focus on the future, focus on where it's going. Again, tooting the Disney horn is saying that this is clear that I need scale and I need good content and I need to build a unified ID that goes across multiple services. This is what I need. It takes time to build that, but this is where I would focus.
And I don't need ads. Phil?
So I've been chewing on this, and glad I didn't go first in this because I had to think about what you were saying, because I actually would disagree from your proposition around, whether you're better off with converged packaging or not. And I think there's a missing component in that analysis, which is worth a whole separate discussion, which is around the concept of yield management. So when you're looking at CPMs and the distribution of those CPMs, you'll see certain trends. You're like, oh, well, much higher on when you have, addressable linear, or it's on, OTT, and you have reasonable targeting on that, et cetera. But if you don't have the proper yield management tools behind kind of that data-driven planning, then what will happen is that broadcaster, that programmer, MVPD, virtual MVPD, is leaving money on the floor. Because if you can't forecast the availability and then deliver it in the context of clash, collision, and compliance of pod-based inventory, because premium, TV and premium video, where you have a pod format, functions very, very differently than like traditional digital environments. Optimizing that is found money.
Thank you for plugging my company. I'm very grateful for that. Yes.
I'll take the cash payment later.
Agreed, yes. And that is the challenge. I think that's why I go back to it, guys. I just think we spend a lot of time talking about marketers and the challenge and the UIDs, et cetera. But I think being a seller is really hard today too, right? And so, with Disney and Disney Plus and the great success there, that is a wonderful thing we should hang our hat on of success. But they're trepidatious about ads, right? There's lots of things occurring.
That's not true, but at the same token, talk about the success of Hulu and talk about the upcoming or the future success of Peacock that's gonna happen, and Tubi and Pluto. video, and I think Viacom just announced today that they're going to come up with a new service based on CBS All Access, also will have ads in it. So we will have premium television, obviously, with ads supported. I would predict that
are they sharing their data?
I don't think.
I mean, does it solve the problem we started with? To come full circle? All those new products, even if they are exceptionally, if the adoption is massive and they have critical mass and audience, does it solve the business problem with which we started? Phil, does it?
I'm going to go jazz hands here. Clarify the question that you're asking about whether they need to be sharing data for it to be effective.
Tal's point was we have a successful migration to pure digital IP-enabled premium television platforms and audience, right? Wholly agree with that. I think it's awesome. But with this proliferation and growth and increasing audience watching television on IP and OTT, does it solve the business problem you described of being able to...
Compounds it. I mean, the reality right now is that that's increasing fragmentation in generally a walled garden environment with ambiguous kind of like infrastructure for how data moves around on an identity basis. All the things that we've been talking about over the last couple of days. But one of the approaches to take to that is, again, let's go back to you can over kind of technologize. I don't know if that's a term or not, but
I'm going to use it though.
You can approach that by saying like, oh my God, the way we have to solve this is we have to get household level, device level, person level measurability for everything with like perfect fidelity. And if we don't have that, it doesn't work. It's like this binary choice. But the reality is, especially in a regulatory environment that is switching to being much more privacy and consent based, that you kind of have to relax from some of those expectations. Like, don't try to make premium television and that evolution simply be more like digital programmatic. I mean, we actually have to make digital programmatic behave more like television. You know, a better use of panel-based data strategies, and probably in the future more incentivized opt-in models to get consumers to agree for use of their data. But we don't have to go to a world where you have perfect tracking for everything and it's an all or nothing proposition.
Agreed.
Right?
Thank you guys, because you allowed me and rolled with it to be contrarian, to have a good conversation. But I just want to commend you all because you're all innovating and you're taking risks and you're, and that we need that. So don't stop that, please, for the sake of just having a good conversation. Don't miss that message. And I think the glass half full is we all have job security. There's so much shit to get done. It's amazing. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right,
Thank you.